Okay guys, this is another visually challenged video, but I figured it's better to put up a little content than forget about a topic. So before we go any further, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Basically, what I've been hearing since Howard Schultz declared his candidacy is essentially confirmation that the process that I was talking about in the fall of 2016 of the toxic cocktail destroying the Democratic Party is coming to fruition. Now, I'm not the only person who was talking about that. I think a lot of people for many years have been using various turns of phrase to describe the, I would say, alienation of certain voting groups from the Democratic Party, as well as the Democrats' pursuit of other voting groups. And the fact is that Schultz represents basically the desire among the Democrats to unite too many different factions into the same big tent. They are a big tent party, but even the biggest tent can't hold all of the circus goers. That's just the way it is. And when you have such contradictory beliefs as tolerance for the gay community, as well as at the same time, giving this cover to radical Islam, which the Democrats do, they try to do both of them. Something has to give. You can't have both of those being a value of the same party. And you see there are people who, it's not just with Howard Schultz, there are people who are calling Tulsi Gabbard an Islamophobe and a homophobe at the same time, which is, it's not really fair. I don't think it accurately sums up her position on either of those issues. I think it's tremendously counterproductive to giving the party a new image where anybody can compete for any position. It's kind of, I don't know if it's disappointing because a lot of us expected it, and I would say that it's validating. It's validating all of the predictions that a lot of us have made, including myself, that the Democratic Party's embrace of far-left economics as well as radical identity politics is going to lead to its doom. They have virtually no chance of attracting, the middle-class voters from suburbia, and also I would say working-class voters from industrial towns and rural voters. They're losing that battle consistently. Now, some of you might say, well, what the hell are you talking about? In the recent midterm elections, that was basically disproven because there were a number of Democrats elected in swing districts. Well, I think that the past few weeks have torn the cover off of that theory. Okay, yes, some of these people who were elected are considered centrists, or even, I would say, beyond centrist. They almost belong in the old neocon Republican Party of Paul Ryan and people like Lindsey Graham. There's very little dividing that wing of the Democratic Party, the neoliberals from the neoconservatives. It's almost as if they're just two sides of the same coin, as people have said to me, including Jim Boydston, who is one of the Bernie Sanders supporters that I interviewed last year. They don't really present an alternative to the policies that have kept America bogged down and unable to solve really any sort of major crisis in the country. You could come at it from the perspective of somebody talking about, let's say, the healthcare crisis. The Democratic Party has not, when they had both houses of Congress under President Obama, they didn't solve it. And likewise, by the way, President Clinton, in his first 2 years in office, he had both houses of Congress, and they didn't solve it at the time either. Now, part of that is because of Republican obstinance and opposition that was able to torpedo the public option under President Obama, as well as the Hillary Care under President Clinton. He didn't want to call it Hillary Care, but effectively that's what it was, because he put his wife in charge of the commission that was intended to determine the new structure of the healthcare, of the national healthcare system that they were wanting to impose. Okay, so I personally oppose single-payer healthcare, but if you're one of these bona fide progressives, you have to probably blame Obama and Clinton for not bringing it across the goal line. And it certainly wasn't going to go across the goal line under George Bush or under Bush Sr. So what else are you supposed to conclude? No, I mean, neither was it going to go over under Donald Trump. So that's essentially what I'm seeing here. And I want to add that another reason that this whole notion of a sensible Democratic Party is basically evaporating is because of this last development over the past week of Governor Cuomo in New York signing a bill that effectively allows abortion up till birth. This was something that I was discussing that ethics paper last week, and V made a video about it. V Montero, I think his name is, a Romanian guy. Nice channel. I like his channel very much. He's pretty pro-choice because of the past of Romania not allowing elective abortions for anyone. And he considers it almost, it's a slap in the face, not just to the pro-life community. I consider myself pro-life, but not completely pro-life. I do think that there are a number of exceptions, but I'm against funding abortion and funding these organizations like Planned Parenthood. However, there are a lot of pro-choice people that have spoken out in the past week against this. That includes V, that includes Styx Hexenhammer, that includes Tim Pool. So you're seeing basically a break among people who are socially liberal. Okay, Tim Pool officially calls himself socially liberal. I would say Styx Hexenhammer is socially liberal. And V, I think he's an atheist as well. None of them are card-carrying, red-blooded conservatives with NRA stickers on their cars or anything. This is a major problem for the Democrats. Now, granted, none of those three people were big stalwarts for the Democratic Party in the past few years. They all were huge critics of Clinton. In Styx's case, he was a major supporter of Donald Trump on YouTube. Okay, if we're just talking about YouTube as a platform, Styx Hexenhammer is one of the more well-known alternative YouTubers to have supported Trump, and he was one of the more unusual ones too. He's a pagan. He's an atheist, not an atheist, but he is extremely socially liberal, and this is a major problem for the Democrats. That type of dissent is now the norm in the Democratic Party. People who are pro-choice, they're seeing this bill going through in New York and also in Virginia. The Virginia bill is even more insane because it effectively legalizes infanticide, killing an infant after birth. And I think ultimately it would be struck down by the Supreme Court because it's no longer my body, my choice, because the child is already born. It's no longer part of your body. The whole rationale behind being pro-choice basically falls apart, and now you're talking about a separate person. Now you're basically saying, well, now that we've already birthed the child, we will now legalize its killing. That's no longer prepartum abortion. That's postpartum abortion, which is infanticide, and it is a major medical ethics problem. I don't care how you look at it. I don't care if you're a pro-choice person or a pro-life person. This is a new frontier in terms of medical practice. And if you're a medical professional who, especially in the OBGYN community, I think a lot of people are probably thinking, is this an appropriate procedure for somebody like me who wanted to go into medicine in order to heal people, help people get more healthy? Is this an appropriate procedure where you're basically killing a patient? The child that's born is a patient. I don't care. I'm not one of these people that talks about necessarily, the sanctity of life is a value. Okay, that's not that. I don't think that's up to debate. But I think beyond that, we're talking about if we start to compromise medical ethics even more, the way that has been going on thanks to this abortion industry, what's going to become of this? What are we going to do next? Are we going to start cloning? Are we going to start deliberate mutations? Because that's also my body, my choice. If people want to start having gene mutations that give them all sorts of strange, I don't know, like strange deformities that they desire, I think that's another frontier in medical ethics that should be cautioned against. So that whole issue tears the cover off of the notion that the Democratic Party is the sensible party. The border debate is also basically, it's a nightmare for the Democrats, because what are they supposed to do? In certain states, people don't want large numbers of illegal immigrants coming in, and it causes friction with the existing residents over there. It causes undue burden to some of the state infrastructure over there. Remember, it's not as if because more people are moving in that there's more seats in a school, that there's more transportation available, that there's more hospital beds available. It just isn't true. Okay, those types of things have to be accounted for, and those people thinking, oh, that's going to generate the growth. That's not the case. That's not the case in many of these states where that have been impacted by illegal immigration. The growth it can't keep up with the growth of population, the growth of infrastructure. That's why we have an infrastructure crisis, because simply put, the growth of the infrastructure can't keep pace with the growth of the population, because there's a large group of people in the country that don't have jobs that can sustain them. They're living on the dole, and they need to be taken care of before we take care of foreign nationals that come here looking for a better life. So yeah, I think all of those factors, along with the Democratic support for foreign intervention in Syria and Afghanistan. Now the Democrats, by the way, I criticize the Republicans plenty for supporting possibly military intervention in Venezuela, which I think is absolutely not the answer over there, even though I despise the Venezuelan government. The Democrats are supporting it too in many ways, and they'd like to lick their chops too, because the oil industry supports the Democrats as well. This is not an endorsement of the Venezuelan form of government. It's just a criticism of our two-party system, which wants to basically engage in predatory activity against other countries in order to boost their bottom line, in order to get those lobbyist dollars in their pockets. And I would say that this is an issue that should transcend liberal and conservative, Democratic and Republican lines. That's why we need more parties. That's why in many cases, I think Donald Trump, the good things that he does cannot end all of this destructive behavior that our government has become conditioned to because of the culture of power and money in Washington, D.C. So yeah, I think the Democrats are actually being screwed even worse by this than the Republicans, because the Republican Party doesn't necessarily have an objection to interventionist foreign policy. Okay, in fact, it might gain back a few of those voters that Trump lost in 2016. Whereas the Democrats, a lot of them, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, would the Democrats support foreign intervention in Syria and Afghanistan, I would have thought you were out of your mind. That was back then. They were the party that was calling for an end to U.S. entanglement in foreign conflicts. President Obama campaigned on withdrawing the troops from Iraq. He campaigned against foreign entanglements. So, yeah, the Democrats have a huge problem with that. And now that Howard Schultz is possibly going to be running as what he calls a centrist independent, they're going to have to deal with somebody who basically, on social issues, he kind of runs parallel to them. On national security issues, he might be kind of a soft neocon. And what are they supposed to do? They're going to be running candidates. The only answer that they can do is to give away free shit. And they're going to be competing, if Schultz remains in the race, against him. So that you had this one woman, Marianne Williamson, who today came out and said that she's for reparations for descendants of slaves from the U.S., which, some people had been calling for that for years, but ultimately that's going to lose you. That's going to lose you votes in the Great Plains, the Midwest, places like that. You can't win an election on that platform. There's people that will like shout hosannas to you all through the night because of that, and those people would have voted for you anyway if you were a far left piece of crap. So that's that's I think where we're going. These people are going to try to outdo one another and go completely for broke trying to win the nomination, and it's not going to work. So that's about it. Once again, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my second channel, Razor Ray Special Cuts. Also subscribe to me on BitChute and CocoScope, and you can see my social media pages in the description below.